Hello and welcome to another episode of the ohmTown Daily News Show. I am Mayor Watt. That is ohmTown.com. I'm also here on Twitch, of course, as you might be watching. If you're not watching it, then if you're hearing my voice, then you're either watching over at YouTube. Just do a search for ohmTown. It should pull up ohmTown over on YouTube. And I'm over at Twitch as well and Twitter. And the podcast is over at Spotify and others. And I don't know, I'm everywhere. So, again, what is ohmTown? ohmTown is a news aggregation site that I use in my daily life. I sift through a lot of news. Basically, you can consider me mildly informed, but not particularly deep in any one topic because I merge kind of a trifecta of topics that I'm interested in: business, technology, and society. And that's the foundation of where I come from. Sorry, my camera actually is just a little bit lower than where most people have it, and you can't see me waving my hands around, but I'm usually down here kind of waving my hands around because I'm gesturing while I'm talking. So at any rate, let's get into today's news. We're going to do a show probably about an hour, not a lot. About 20 articles that I've selected over the last 24 hours. And, some of them are, interesting to you. Some of them are not. That's basically what life really is. Some things are interesting and some aren't. Sometimes it's political, sometimes it's science, sometimes it's sociological, sometimes there's finance or business, and finance can run a pretty broad gamut. So stick around, and if you don't like something or do like something, let me know. I'm interested in evolving the show, and that comes from people saying, "Hey, I like this kind of topic." I have 50 channels that I want to bring to Twitch and YouTube and the internet, I guess you could say. And ohmTown is the nexus of all of this. So when you go over to ohmTown, you'll see that it says create news, education, entertainment, social, and technology. All of them usually are news related in some way, but this is a particular category where it's aggregated from a multitude of sources, just like the rest, but these have even more focused niche areas like Bead Baby. I want to make an online real-time auction show where jewelry findings, like custom clasps or custom beads, for instance. That was the original intent of Bead Baby, was to produce a show where people could auction in real time jewelry, beads in particular. And all of these have their own niche topics that I find interesting, and I utilize this news aggregation service to control the overwhelming amount of information that passes before me. Sometimes it's just too much and you have to kind of step away. This last week, for instance, I've been closing up shop and a bunch of other things that have been going on for the last year. And I'm trying to make room so that I can stream more often. When things started coming to a head where I could actually start bowing out of other responsibilities, for whatever reason, the universe spun a whole lot of things right back at me, and I had to solve that dilemma. And so now, what I thought was going to start last week will hopefully start this week with today's show. I hope that tomorrow I'll be able to stream more games in particular. I'd really like to start playing here on ohmTown. Yeah, V Rising. I've fallen in love with this game, and it's a lot of fun. And I actually play it with my son, who is really interested in the game, and we'll see if we can play it. Otherwise, I will be also spinning up an ohmTown server for V Rising and other games as I get more into being able to stream longer periods of time. Um, so if you're interested in that kind of thing, stick around, ask questions, let me know you're in chat. I will try to, and I really do riff off of the people that I am speaking with. I don't really speak to people, I speak with them. I try not to plan anything. So it's really just a vamp, and I'm talking about the stuff that we all find interesting to talk about with a little bit of guidance um, around the news. So, with that in mind, let's get into today's articles. The very first one, my music is a little loud here. You can't hear it, but I can hear it on my side. The very first article is an article in the Hatch Ideas channel. It is aggregated from Business Insider, and it says scientists unravel the mystery of how elephants mourn their dead thanks to YouTube. Report says a team of scientists use YouTube videos to observe how elephants mourn their dead. According to a new paper, they found 39 videos capturing 24 cases of elephants mourning lost members of their herd. The study said the scientists were surprised to see female elephants carrying dead calves for days or weeks at a time. It's sad. So Joshua Zitzer is the author of this article over at businessinsider.com. If you've never watched a video like this, there's a lot of I don't know how anybody watching this could deduce how they do or why they do what they do. But I read somewhere that there's some subsonic sound and elephants call each other. And they're very impassioned, I guess you could say, if maybe I'm humanizing it a little bit too much, anthropomorphizing something that we can't communicate with in a real way, at least a way that we understand communication. But it says biologist Sanjita Sharma Pokral had only observed one example of Asian elephants mourning their dead in the wild after 4 years of field work in India, according to science.org. Some of her colleagues, who had spent decades observing wild elephants, only witnessed the creatures displaying grief a handful of times, the journal said. So they searched YouTube, which in and of itself is somewhat of an elephant, never forgetting being able to reach back a decade plus. And historical videos that get posted are amazing time capsules of cultural relativism, where something that was done 20 years ago and arguably accepted is not accepted by any means today. So having these videos is an amazing statement to technology and society. The elephants also trumpeted and roared in response to the deaths. The New York Times reported and had a vigil for lost members of their herd by staying near the bodies and chasing away curious humans. Wow. Yeah, so we actually see this in a lot of other animals too, where they will go and try to verify, I suppose, that their fellow herd or members of the troop have passed away. And, a compassionate human being watching this happen would probably feel something. Maybe we all have something to learn from this. The female elephants, presumably mothers, could be seen carrying their babies through forests for days, possibly weeks at a time, according to science.org. Yeah, animals are perhaps more like us. We just don't have the ability to communicate in their language, right? Much like two peoples not being able to communicate because of a language barrier. We just need a little understanding, little compassion, empathy, sympathy, be human to each other. Let's go on to the next article. This article is also aggregated into the Hatch Ideas channel, from burgers to breakfast cereal, some key ingredients being hit by food export bans. Industry experts tell us that what might be next. Again, about a year and a half ago, I had heard from some food producer. I think it was somebody that was involved in chickens, who announced to the world that the days of cheap food are over. And, sometimes there's a prophecy that somebody has written 1,000 years ago and suddenly it appears, as if they knew what the future was going to be. Well, this person knew what was coming. And to me, I didn't see it happening like the moment this person was saying it. But a year later, and I see 6 months worth of just explosive pricing. I mean, what used to cost $20 is now $30 or $40 for meals for 3 people. And it's not, I mean, it's pretty typical in a restaurant where the ticket used to be $20 a person at a restaurant, depending on where you go. It's all a lot, there's a lot of relativism here. But even fast food is getting up there where you can spend $50 for 3 people, depending on which restaurant you go to. And it's still fast food. You're still picking it up in your car and breathing exhaust fumes on the way out. So it's pretty wild that we're hearing about this kind of stuff and seeing it happen. So in this article, it says food prices are soaring from export bans, and it's affecting everything from burgers to cereal. Commodities, including wheat, sugar, and cooking oils, have become harder to find. There's an actual typo in the article. Prices are real high, and they don't seem to be going down anytime soon, an industry expert said. There's no name there. Heat waves, poor harvest, supply chain bottlenecks, and disruption from war in Ukraine, which is decidedly focused on wheat, and have sent food prices soaring this year. And I actually did some research into this, and I have matched period for period the last 10 years of wheat harvest and fuel costs. They are at parity. And my issue is I don't have the fidelity with my data to see which one is the leading indicator, but I suppose based on what I see in other domains, other sectors, that it's oil and gas. Oil and gas is the leading indicator for all other things. And these companies that are pricing their oil and gas higher are scoring record profits while saying that the costs are extremely high for the raw materials, and therefore it's passing it on, except that it's multiples times the costs that they are being charged. And they are the ones that are the suppliers. They are the ones that get the raw materials and process it. So it's really them raising their costs. And it's because it is the foundation of all transactions. For instance, you can't get from the harbor to the inner city without gasoline. It's going to cost more getting it from point A to point Z, and everybody is taking a piece of the action as it goes. So prices are extraordinarily higher. Prices for gasoline are like $6 over in California. Pardon me. So let's click this link and take a look at what else is being said. Zara Tayeb is the author of this article over at Business Insider, and they've got a sub-segment called Markets Insider. And this is in a category called commodities. Commodities, including wheat, sugar, and cooking oils, have become fewer to find. That's an interesting turn of phrase. There's fewer options. It's harder to find a diverse number of options because the prices or conflict is preventing manufacturers from getting things like sunflower oil out to the retail chain. Pardon me. I had to cough, and that means muting me at least. And there have been some poor harvests everywhere, and some countries are aggregating a whole bunch of purchases into their country and then storing it for a rainy day, so to speak. Right now is that rainy day. Inflation is outstripping anybody who might have come close to being able to manage during the pandemic. Again, I say it's because people are profiteering. I hate talking about business as if it's a disembodied entity that's controlling the inhabitants of the enterprise, but it's people within the businesses that are acting in this way, demanding more profit, but not necessarily allowing their margin to be uh, impacted. So really, it's the ultra rich that are making more money and harming the rest of society in the process because of the last 2.5 years of the pandemic and its global economic impact. All of us who aren't the manufacturers or ultra wealthy are going to suffer a whole lot more, and these people don't care. So keep that in mind when you make your decisions about things. Says here there's myriad of problems, none of which resolve themselves in a great hurry. Mark Ostwald, chief economist at ADM Investor Services International, a UK based multi asset brokerage firm, told Insider. If you want to know more about this, there are countries like India that have halted wheat exports, and some countries like the United States can pretty much support themselves. Prices will increase because there is less. So it's kind of a business concept. Just like a business, you do what you are very good at, what you have competitive advantage at. So if you know how to make widgets, then you build widgets and you make them fast and furious and get them to market. You make your profits, you evolve your widgets, you make them best. You add value to it by giving superior customer service, and you talk to people and you engage, and you basically make your product superior from corner to corner, whatever it might be. Well, the same thing goes with countries. So you're not going to go into a country that has never done aerospace engineering and suddenly want titanium from them. Why? Because they don't have the infrastructure or engineers or the science behind it. You can come in with yours, but that can tend to lead to exfiltration of that information, and then basically you harm your own strategic advantage or competitive advantage. So you want to be able to just go in there and say, here, do this. And they know how to do it. So they're not really pushing the limit of maybe we can just take what you bring to us and then we can sell it elsewhere as well as produce it for you. There's a whole lot more to this, and context really does matter in global finance and supply chain management and business in general, particularly in a global business climate, which is why a lot of people want to isolate, they want to close doors down because other people are competitive, and to be with competition means that you have to be better and you have to lower your price and you can't have massive margins. No. If you want to be the boss, you basically stop everybody else from being able to go anywhere else. Back in the day, Hershey used to have company stores and pay people in company money so that they could go to the company stores and buy clothing that was basically provided to them by the company. You live on company grounds, you work for the company, and it was basically a massive internal economy that went away. But Hershey didn't. So, and you can read all about that when you go up and do tours in Hershey, Pennsylvania. That said, here we are being impacted by inflation across the board. So these export bans are only going to do more harm to the global environment while trying to mitigate the local domestic problem. But prices in the US will continue to go up because we don't have the ability to go out and grab more material, bring it into the United States, and lower our prices. The same thing goes for any other country that's trying to import from other countries. This is not the end of it. Just because the pandemic is waning, prices are not going to start dropping. And companies, there have been mergers and acquisitions, which eliminate competition, which means that there's fewer options and higher prices will come from it. You don't get lower prices from a merger or acquisition because it's gobbled up competition. So, what is the motivation to be competitive, provide better customer service, or lower your price? You don't become a billionaire by having a 1% margin and being happy with 1% margin. This next article, and I'll have to keep on moving because I'll be here forever, which I'm happy to do if there are a bunch of people in my chat and having a good time talking. So let me know if you're in my chat because I just don't trust the Twitch chat telling me exactly how many people are in my chat. I have one window or one place saying that I've got one person, and I got another window that says that there's 16, and got another window that says that there's 5. So I just don't know. So let's see. I tried a vegan filet mignon. It's delicious, but fancy plant-based protein is still too pricey for most. Yeah, it's going to be that way until its greater adoption takes hold and more people are allowed to produce it, and you have competition, and it lowers the price. And production leads to, and competition leads to lowering those prices. Juicy Marbles makes what it says is the world's first plant-based filet mignon. I am going to hunt that thing down. The soy-based steaks have impressive marbling and develop a meat-like crust when cooking. The $8 steaks tasted delicious, although the texture reminded me more of pulled pork. Well, that's not really filet mignon there. Anyway, back to the article. Juicy Marble makes what they say is the first plant-based filet mignon. So let's go take a look at it. It's over at businessinsider.com. I guess they've been pretty prolific in the last 24 hours. But so this looks like, this is an article over at businessinsider.com by Grace Dean. And they have a picture of what this is, what looks like this plant-based filet mignon, which does not look like filet mignon. And even the picture looks, again, more like pulled pork, like they say, like Grace Dean says in her article, in their article, pardon me. The soy-based steaks have impressive marbling and develop a meat-like crust when cooking, but it to me it doesn't. And I love filet mignon. That particular cut and the way that it's cooked and the quality that it usually embodies doesn't look like that. So let's continue on. And at $8, that's pretty inexpensive for filet. So I'm going to have to hunt this down and find out where it is, because I'll give it a try. I'm trying to move away from meat and animal products. It's difficult for me. I've done it before, only to fall off the wagon. mainly because it was more difficult for me to find it. It wasn't really cost associated, but it was uh, less available. In every place that I've lived, it's always been less available. And I think what we have a problem with really is that we keep trying to align uh, vegetarian or non animal products to align with their replacements. So we want something to be filet mignon. And when we do that and it falls short, it really sours the uh, attitude toward these types of products. So I've had this discussion with other people who are um, vegetarian adjacent. They want to, but like me, they can't. And that's really what it comes down to. We would rather have just good vegetarian meals without the attempt to be a steak. But this could be a close approximation if it tastes right. But it already looks more like pulled pork than filet mignon to me as well. They package it the way that they would package it a steak. Other companies in the plant-based market, such as Impossible and Beyond Meat, both of those I've never liked the food. Have struck deals with fast food giants, including McDonald's, Burger King, Carl's Jr. These brands largely focus on mimicking heavily processed products such as nuggets, burger patties, and sausages, whereas Juicy Marbles instead targets premium cuts of meat and consumers willing to pay a little more. And honestly, it doesn't seem like expensive. I mean, are they $8 um, per piece? And there's 4 in the package, so it's $36 in the packaging. I didn't really say, did it? Let me scroll back up here. I mean, the summary said $8. Let me see. Maybe it'll say what the real price is on the shelf. The company's founder told me that one of the quickest ways to prepare the steak was to cut it into slices and fry it. My knife glided through the plant-based steak with ease, but the texture was a bit stringy and seemed to crumble a little as I cut it. Yeah. One of the strips of steak seemed to disintegrate as I cooked it. Interesting. So I'll hunt it down. If it doesn't act like a fillet, then it just can't. It's not even a close approximation. So the way that they're cooking it here makes it look pretty close, although way too perfect. It looks like it's extruded and then sliced, kind of like spam. Yeah. Anyway, if you want to read more about this and take a look at the pictures, please follow the. Oh, yeah. Okay. So the author says, I really enjoyed Juicy Marble Steaks, but at $30 for a pack of 4, so it is about $8 per, plus $15 delivery, they are really expensive, especially when a McPlant burger from with a Beyond Meat patty is just over $5. And it's a completely different animal, perhaps. And I wouldn't mind trying these out, even at $30. But yeah, at $8 a piece. Yeah, it can add up because it doesn't necessarily have the same value, but I would be willing to switch to this if it met my particular desire for a plant-based steak. I've had many others and I've just never liked them. They're either stringy or they taste like cardboard packaging, which, you know, when you package a lot of products, sometimes you end up eating that packaging material. I don't want to talk about it. Still in therapy. Let's continue on the next article. This has been an ongoing trend for me. Apple reportedly chose a standalone AR VR headset over a more powerful tethered design. If this holds true, I am all over this. Apple's rumored mixed reality headset seems like the worst kept secret in tech, and the new report about the device from the information, which I have not been aggregating, is chock full of details about the unannounced product's turbulent development. I sincerely hope that they drop this. This would be amazing. One of the most notable parts of the story is about Apple's decision to go with a standalone headset. At one point, Apple hadn't decided yet whether to move forward with a more powerful VR headset that had been paired with a base station or a standalone one, while Apple's VR AR leader, Mike Rockwell, apparently preferred the version with, let's see, I didn't get to finish it because my aggregator just chopped it off, which is pretty typical. I don't manipulate the news, and my aggregator is very efficient at grabbing just what I tell it to grab. So this article is over at The Verge by Jay Peters. So let's see. What did Mike Rockwell want? So Mike Rockwell apparently preferred the version with the base station, which included a processor that eventually shipped as the M1 Ultra. According to the information, Apple executives chose to go with the standalone product, and Bloomberg reported similar details in 2020. So this has actually kind of been around, but there hasn't been any forward motion that I recall since people started talking about these rumors. But it says here, Apple reportedly showed the headset to its board of directors last week, so it could be nearing a public reveal. That said, it may not be announced until later this year, and it might not hit the shelves until 2023. I hope not. But we're talking about serious supply chain management problems while being told that there is no COVID supply chain management issues. But we all know that they're out there. And with the Great Resignation still in full swing, and the ultra rich getting even more ultra rich, while people are lacking even baby formula and unable to get their raw materials to survive, I don't know if this product even really deserves a spotlight to come out. There's a lot of concerns out there. If it hits the market, it hits the market. Some people are going to pay for it. Others will not be able to. Right now, it really doesn't seem like a target-rich environment for purchasing high tech. Who knows? Maybe some chips are going to be missing, and you're not going to get the full product until the supply chain management issues are addressed. Much like other vehicles, cars and stuff like that are being sold without certain chips so that they can at least get them off of the showroom floor. Maybe that'll happen here. I don't know. I just hope that we get a good quality standalone competitor that isn't associated in any way with Facebook/Meta. But they are way out in front, and they've got a whole lot of momentum and not enough competition to make them waver about privacy. They really don't care about your privacy. Let's continue on with the next article. I hadn't heard about this, but I was really interested. I always am interested in this stuff. One extraordinary exception has been our ongoing coverage of the Tiffany Blue Patek Philippe Nautilus 5711 that sold at Phillips, New York last December for an awe-inspiring sum of more than $6.5 million. So what is this that we're talking about? Let's click the link and I'll show you. This is an article over at Hodinkee. So it's an auction. Remember the Tiffany Blue Patek Philippe Nautilus 5711 that sold at Phillips last year? Well, that's what it is. Behind the scenes look at how the multi-million-dollar sale of a single watch is helping save the planet. This article is over at hodinkee.com, HODINKEE.com. If you're interested in watches, I'm interested in watches, but more on the aesthetic and engineering side than the watch in and of itself. I will never own a vast array of watches. I'm more interested in smartwatches, but I love the engineering. Um, this article was written by Logan Baker. I won't go into the whole thing, but it says one extraordinary exception has been the ongoing coverage of the Tiffany Blue Petit Philippe Nautilus 5711 that sold at Philippe, New York for 6.5 million. With the full total going to benefit the Nature Conservancy. 6 weeks after I initially thought the story complete, we brought you the exclusive inside scoop on how one of the underbidders, a young collector named Zach, ended up with the watch. And today, the author and Hodinky glad to be able to bring to you what is likely the third and final act of this Tiffany Blue tale, a brief glimpse into where exactly all those millions of dollars went and what good they've done for the world. Without going into it, because I think the article should be read, at least scanned by you, the listeners of the ohmTown Daily News Show, you should go over to hodinky.com and listen, I should say read, look at the pictures, just let it soak in that there are sometimes really good, very fabulously wealthy people. A lot of goodwill is garnered from this kind of an action, and it's a pretty watch. I dig the engineering of it, and you should go and read more about what and where and why and who and what all was involved. Let me see. I want to see the back of this. I want to see the case of this watch. So some of that money went to Borneo, Alaska. Let's see where else. Papua New Guinea, the Caribbean, the Maya Forest in Belize. So go read more. Kind of treat this as not just more information thrown at you, but kind of like a holistic review of the news from some of the good for society and some of where society is being you're being a bad society, that kind of thing, right? Like uh, one is you're petting the cat and the other one is you've got your spray bottle out because it keeps pushing stuff off the counter and you have to try and stop it from doing that. I've never done that because I have savannas and they're more likely to come over and grab the bottle out of your hand and squirt you with it. But at any rate, go check it out over at Odinky. The next article is over in the Hatch Ideas channel. America's small businesses aren't ready for a cyber attack. Yes, that is correct. Small business owners consistently leave cybersecurity off their list of top risks. The level of threat is higher than they think, and customers are worried. This is an ongoing concern. There are hundreds of thousands of cyber-related jobs that are out there and not enough qualified people. Don't think that cybersecurity or tech in general is somebody else's concern. It's usually left off, so you need to be infinitely aware. You can't just say, it's somebody else's problem, like I just said. This is an article over at CNBC by Laura Ronsky and John Cohen. And let's see, just 5% of small business owners report cybersecurity to be the biggest risk to their business right now, according to CNBC's SurveyMonkey Small Business Surveys. The latest survey was the first to take the Main Street pulse since Russia, associated with many high-profile hacks in recent years and making threats about military technical measures, invaded Ukraine. So it isn't unheard of for somebody to have been breached for upwards of 18 months before they even detect it. And then they can't patch it because they don't know really where it all happened, how it happened. You would need to be forensically audited to find that out and the full extent, because unlike somebody breaking into your house where you can see everywhere they've been, it's virtually impossible to find everything that somebody has done once they've broken into your network. In fact, there could be no records of it because the people are sophisticated enough to delete it. So you really do need somebody. Well, the problem here is that cybersecurity is kind of like the early days of law, and even now law. It's arcane, it's abstract, it's largely in a different language. It's very expensive if you want quality. And if you don't want quality, then you're assuming a lot of liability and risk. And the people that are providing the service at a lower level are providing it based on what they know, and it's not necessarily good enough. That said, you really should have somebody in your corner at least taking a look at what's going on your network, regardless of what you think is important. If you are doing business, you really need somebody, anybody, to take a look at your computer network. Point of sale isn't enough. Okay. If there is a database of information, if you're using a computer in your enterprise or you're doing it at home and you're migrating information from one place to another, if either place is breached, consider both of them breached because you've been migrating data back and forth and exposing yourself to either a breach at the office or a breach at the house. Just keep it in mind. It says here, quarter over quarter, the number saying cybersecurity is their top risk has held steady and is the lowest priority out of the 5 surveyed. In the same period, the number of small businesses who say inflation is the biggest risk to their business has increased from 31 to 38%, holding the top spot in terms of risk. The numbers reporting supply chain disruptions and COVID-19 have both declined. Well, that's because inflation is much more obvious, at least until something happens in the cyber attack that makes it very apparent. And you can wake up one day and walk into your office and you've got a ransomware notice, or you've got a little file sitting on your desktop, the only one that is accessible, that says, I've deleted everything on your computer, and if you ever want it back, you'll have to give me 50 bitcoins, which most small businesses would not be able to handle that. So keep it in mind. Don't let it be somebody else's problem. And unfortunately, everybody does, typically in business. But if you're handling money in any way, shape, or form, or personal information, PII, personally identifiable information, consider this a warning that at some point, it's not if, it's when you will be breached. There are thousands upon thousands, millions of people that are hacking all over the world, from anywhere to anywhere, and they have to be right once, whereas you, as the defender of the network that you are using, you have to be right all the time. Let's just say the odds are against you from keeping that wall up. You need to be, well, I don't know. I was going to say the Wayne Gretzky of cybersecurity, but I don't know enough to be a subject matter expert in that. So it was just, I thought it was going to be an interesting statement. So let me just move on before I embarrass myself any more than that. It's getting a little cringy in here. So the next article is over in the Hatch Ideas channel, 6 Things Immunologists. This immunologist, not me, but the author of the person that's writing for this article. 6 things this immunologist does every night to help better and boost her immune system. Exercising isn't enough. Getting enough sleep is actually one of the most effective ways to fight infection, says immunologist and functional medicine Dr. Heather Mode. She shares why quality sleep is essential for boosting her immune system and how to get more of it. So let's click this link. This is an article in CNBC, a section called Health and Wellness. There's a greater section. There's always these, I don't know, it's just like filtered down, kind of like ohmTown, but CNBC make it in a section called Health and Wellness. and it's written by Dr. Heather Modi. So I'm just going to scroll through this really quick because it's 6 things that this immunologist says will help you sleep better and boost their immune system. So sleep, how to get better sleep, cut down on digital devices. That's all about distraction and light. Light kind of triggers you to be active, and if you aren't careful with the amount of light in the room and laying there just with an iPad or phone or whatever device in front of your face, you just won't go to sleep. It stimulates your brain, it stimulates your eyes, it makes you think that you're supposed to be awake until you just become exhausted. Unfortunately, a lot of us like to stay engaged until 2 o'clock in the morning and then have to get up at 4 or 5. So 3 hours of sleep is not unheard of for Mayor Watt. Create an optimal sleep environment, basically shut down everything. Weighted blankets or a cooling pad to cool you off. It really depends on your particular environment and your personal needs. What somebody says is best, blah blah blah, isn't necessarily best for you, but you can take it all with a grain of salt and see. Maybe really light materials will help you sleep better versus a weighted blanket if you don't like the pressure of a weight on you. Some people like feeling kind of pinned down. So I like the idea of air-conditioned bed. So if you've ever spent time in a hospital where it gets really cold, but you want to be warm, they have these really neat heated beds where it's blowing air under the sheets and is kind of like an air conditioner in there. It's really neat. You should check it out. You can just do a search on Google and find it. Calm the mind before bedtime. It's easier said than done. But you can give it a try. Experiment with magnesium. Yeah, you can take the like melatonin or magnesium or other things that have been spoken about in various journals and even anecdotal evidence that says, hey, it'll help you sleep. But magnesium is one of them. Wear blue light blocking glasses. Again, that's the stimulation effect that light has on us humans. We absorb all kinds of information through our eyes, and the more light that hits us, the more, to a point, the more stimulated we are and we stay awake. And then it says do some easy stretching. Again, that's just about getting comfortable. And I think the key ingredient here is get comfortable. Find yourself trying to get into that deep sleep. I do this neat trick where I wake up about an hour and a half before I need to get up, and just allow myself to become just barely conscious, and then grab my blankets and just kind of curl up even tighter, and you sink into this really deep sleep, and it's the best sleep that you can get for an hour. Sometimes it's just an amazing sleep. Let's continue on with the next article. The next article is over in the Smack Talk channel. Autographed Apple artifacts hit the auction block. A new auction is offering a selection of autographed Apple items up for sale, including photographs, manuals, and other artifacts signed by Steve Wozniak and Ronald Wayne, aka the Woz, and kind of the third Beatle is Ronald Wayne. He bowed out early. Let me just click the link so that we can play some catch up on the time. This is an article over at Apple Insider by Malcolm Owen, and shows some of the, if that's the first dollar, that's kind of amazing. They have a picture of some of the computers that are early on and manuals like the Apple II reference manual, and their catchy phrase, the pithy statement of think different. The new auction is offering a selection of autographed Apple items up for sale, including photographs, manuals, and other artifacts signed by Steve Wozniak and Ronald Wayne, running until June 15th. RR Auctions Fine Autographs and Artifacts event includes a wide variety of documents and items signed by famous names, including presidents and religious figures and major historical leaders as part of the 865 lots. Some of the items in the catalog are linked to Apple. A total of 12 lots are listed as having Apple connections with signatures from co-founders Waz and Wayne. If you want to read more about this, go over to Apple Insider and read this article by Malcolm Owen. Okay, let me continue on. I'm going to play catch up. The next article is over in Hatch Ideas. Again, it's a channel here on ohmTown that I would like to bring to Twitch and to YouTube and to the podcast that focuses on business, more accurately focused on entrepreneurship, intellectual property development, strategic management. This article is a 36-year-old chess prodigy built software to speedily buy homes from afar for big investors, beating out everyday buyers. Now he's Atlanta's top broker. I've never liked all of this kind of stuff. I love automation. I love technology. But this actually ends up pricing people out that have to do more struggle to get a place to live. And it's kind of like the days of yore where a landowner, somebody who's connected, modern day oligarchs, because they have connections and they have money because of those connections, or they have gotten money from history, family, etc. They have the means to just scoop up whatever they want, and it takes it away from other hardworking people. And it's not necessarily that hard to accrue wealth. If you already have the silver spoon, if you already have the political and family connections, if you already have it, you don't have to work hard. You can literally just fall on your face while you're investing your wealth. Well, that's what this is. This is using software, using technology to just scoop up whatever is out there, and it prices out everybody else, because somebody's going to buy the cheaper, best deal kind of a thing, and everything else is going to get more expensive. Everybody then has to pay for an apartment and rent, which is basically paying somebody else's mortgage for this, and it's making them richer, because real estate rarely loses value unless it's wholeheartedly abused or the economy collapses like in 2008. But even then, the people that knew it was coming knew it before the average Joe. That's for damn sure. So I don't really like this kind of stuff, but I'm happy to talk about it. Former chess prodigy AJ Steigman is the top residential real estate broker in Atlanta. He created a software that scans large data sets to find undervalued homes, but his clients aren't typical family buyer. They're hedge funds and private equity firms. That crap has to stop. Houses should be for people. Well, what's going to end up happening is somebody's going to constrain the supply. That's going to drive prices up, and then they make this arbitrage price where, because wealth begets wealth with zero value except creating more money for billionaires. I just don't know what else to say. There was more there, but I'm flabbergasted that this is considered an ethical or moral endeavor. But again, it goes to money begets money. There are people struggling to get a house, yet people with billions can just buy, 500 houses somewhere in a city if it's available, pull them off the market, and it would drive the price up, just like owning stock. It drives the price up. Then you set the price, and everybody else has to suffer. Certain things just should not be a corporate endeavor. Sure, corporate endeavor to build the houses, but it's like the builder buying all of the property or setting a price and knowing that it's going to get constrained, keep on jacking the price up because you know it's going to keep on getting, and that actually happens. I know it happens because it's happened in my area too. It's all just so sociopathic to me. It just screams abuse and predatory. But I'm not a billionaire. I've actually been told, well, you're just a bench warmer because you aren't the one that's doing this kind of stuff. Well, I left global finance because of that. I didn't like the way that it conducts itself. I didn't like the way that it treats a human being as if it's cattle. That it removes the human being and the human condition from the equation, all in the effort to make more money, because somebody once said a business's objective is to generate money, is to get money, is to generate wealth. That's not what it should be. It's to create value. The value is a nebulous term. You shouldn't be stepping on people's necks to get ahead. That's why we are in the boat we are, because we've lost the humanity in a large swath of society. And it's typically around money. Well, I mean, I've been flat out told that some people would rather be a billionaire than to give a rat's butt about other human beings. And I've heard it from people I never thought that I'd hear it from. So this article is over at, the one that I'm on my soapbox about is over at Business Insider. And it's written by Hannah Towey. This person created, AJ Steigman created software that basically allows rich clients to purchase real estate, residential real estate, houses. So corporations are buying what a family of 5 would purchase, to live in. Might be their forever home, for crying out loud, because it's the only thing that they can buy, and they won't be able to make more money because of the crappy economy, and they've had other issues. So, there's so much context there that it just gets lost, because we have to have a real discussion about it. He was able to sell residential properties from thousands of miles away thanks to a $20,000 computer and a proprietary software system called SteagNet that he launched at the University of Pennsylvania in 2018. Yeah. But you won't find any mom and pop home buyers on Steigman's client roster. Instead, he works with investors that flip the homes or rent them out for profit. I know. Who am I? Who am I to try to promote humanism? The next article, and I'll have to move on. If there's people in my chat, I'm willing to talk about this stuff more. Love to hear your thoughts. Love to hear your thoughts. And if you're aligned with me, then come into my chat and talk with me. Follow me. You'll see when I go live. I'm trying to get it into a steady state. Everything kind of broke down over the last week because I had hardcore plans to do this, and then the rest of the world conspired to keep me from doing it when I wanted to, when I needed to. Well, I'm going to make it happen. It's just going to have to start next week. Hopefully this weekend. Hopefully tomorrow. I'm not seeing it, but I'm hoping. I can't tell everybody to just leave me the hell alone so I can do this. This is what I want to do. Now, the next article is over in Hatch Ideas. Boeing Starliner docks with the International Space Station for the first time. Congratulations, Boeing Starliner. Docked with the ISS for the first time. Success of uncrewed test flight follows previous failures and delays. Docking shows the Starliner is capable of transporting passengers to the space station. Okay, now do it 10 more times. Boeing Starliner spacecraft docked. Let's see. The CST-100 Starliner was created for NASA's Commercial Crew Program and is now shown that it is capable of transporting people to the ISS. Yay, more competition. Lower that price. Come on. Lower that price for commercial flight. Jyoti Mann is the author over at Business Insider. And it says, successive uncrewed test flight shows previous failures and delays. Yeah, that's what happens. Now, previous failures teach us how to do it right by showing us the various errors in our previous attempts. So it's wildly expensive for people to do it in space travel, and can sometimes cost people their lives. But there are people that are brave enough to actually take that risk. Amazing conviction to actually sit in a pilot seat and test something. Let's see, the Boeing Starliner was designed to carry up to 7 passengers or a combination of passengers and cargo for NASA space service missions to carry out scientific research on the ISS, and can be reused 10 times within a 6-month turnaround time, or with a 6-month turnaround time. Interesting that there's even a timing thing here. It can be reused 10 times with a 6-month turnaround time. Not quite sure what that means. So every 6 months it can be reused once? Seems like a huge turnaround time. I don't know, maybe SpaceX has more of these and they're just launching them because there's so many more of them. I'm going to have to look into that part of it. Let's continue on to the next article. This next article is in the Hatch Ideas channel, but it was aggregated from Business Insider as well. I tried McDonald's breakfast in Canada and found its longtime competition. There's a typo actually in the title from the source. With Tim Hortons has led to a large menu full of delicious items. So they tried out a bunch of stuff. I'm just going to click the link and take us over there because Mary Meisenzahl is the author of this article at Business Insider. And I've actually seen a little bit about the differences between Canada and the United States in terms of their fast food. And in some cases it's healthier, in other cases not so much. But this one actually kind of surprises me because I had actually seen something about this previously, and then it kind of showed up here in the aggregator that they have a much different, a much broader number of products that are available to the consumers there. First, they tried the egg and sausage on a plain bagel, which is basically what you can get from the McDonald's here in the States and pretty much everywhere, I'm sure. If it's available, then it's going to be this basic. But then they have an everything bagel, and here they have a spicy habanero bacon egg McMuffin. And that I haven't seen here in the States. And I guess you just have to, in their case, you had to add it to the sandwich because it was on the side. Not everybody wants all of it all the time, everywhere. And let's see here. The fast food landscape in Canada is dominated by Tim Hortons, which has nearly 3 times as many locations as McDonald's. Canadian McDonald menus and restaurants display have a much bigger focus on breakfast and McCafe items than in the US, which could be a way of competing with Tim Hortons. I've heard some people really like Tim Hortons. Yeah, they can come down here now, right? And compete. And it's all about competition. You know, competition would be influenced. Pricing would be influenced and options would be influenced by greater competition. So come on, bring it all down here too and compete here in the States. Start affecting, you know, the rest of the United States, not just McDonald's in Canada. Come on down. We would love to have more options here in the States. Canada's customers Canadian customers likely have slightly different expectations and tastes than Americans when it comes to fast food, and McDonald's changes menus to reflect that. Yes, I agree. But they do that everywhere. Anywhere that there is an American company, they tend to tweak their offerings so that it's more appealing to the domestic citizenry, the domestic customer. So much so that there are things that are flavored differently in different countries. The next article is over in the Daily News Show, which is this show. At some point, what I'm going to end up doing is when it's the Daily News Show, it will be from the Daily News Show channel on ohmTown only. But we have these 50 channels that all the news is aggregated into because they are focused. And so this show is basically a composite of everything that's on ohmTown. This is nearly 8,000-year-old skull found in Minnesota River. A partial skull from nearly 8,000 years ago was found by two kayakers in a river. Two kayakers in a river? That's an interesting turn of phrase. Well, I think the two kayakers were on the river and they saw that the skull was in the river. Anyway, will be returned to Native American officials in Minnesota. And it says Redwood Falls, Minnesota. This is an ABC News article written by the Associated Press and published over on ABC News. My aggregator grabs a little snippet of it. But kayakers found the skull in drought-depleted Minnesota River about 110 miles west of Minneapolis, Renville County Sheriff Scott Habel said. And after investigation determined that it was an 8,000-year-old skull, it was to be returned to Native American officials. Let's see here. Is there anything? Habel said his office removed the post. I guess he said something that was a complete shock to us, that the bone was that old, perhaps suggestive of a cause of death. The anthropologist determined the man had a depression in his skull that was perhaps suggestive of the cause of death. After the sheriff posted about the discovery on Wednesday, his office was criticized by several Native Americans who said publishing photos of ancestral remains was offensive to their culture, and they removed the post and said that they didn't mean for it to be offensive whatsoever. It's basically like a lot of people. There's a lot of cultural relativism. So if you don't know, then be compassionate, be understanding and sympathetic, and do what is necessary to make those who you are impacting understand that the intent was not there to offend, which is exactly what they did, which is great. But I'm sure that somebody will find fault and say, well, you should have asked before you did anything. Because even the law, there's a statement that I have been told pops up when you talk to police officers and attorneys, that ignorance of the law is no excuse. You can run afoul of the law and not even know it. Because you think that whatever you're doing is just fine. In some states, in some cities, they've got a law where, and it's funny because it shows up in law school, you're not allowed to walk your cow down Main Street on Sunday because there's some law from 1485 or something that says that you're not allowed to do that. And it's still in effect. Just nobody necessarily brings it to your attention. But if you piss off the wrong person, then suddenly you're being brought into jail because you've violated this ancient law. Sometimes it's irrational, sometimes it is wholly rational. And in this particular case, the intent was to disclose what was found, not offend. So good on them for correcting it at least, and making it known what the context was. So the Facebook post showed a complete lack of cultural sensitivity by failing to call the individual a Native American and referring to the remains as a little piece of history. Yeah. And there you go. There's a lot of Um, Again, cultural relativism. One person thinks, and by one person, I mean an entire culture of people that have one understanding of the impact and import of this. And then there is another smaller group of people that don't think anything of it as being an issue, that they did this, that, or the other. But we need to be sympathetic and compassionate for all of this instead of being irate and upset, which text, that emotional state is completely lost on people. So just keep it all in mind that humans are humans, and sometimes not sometimes, we are all fallible. Just sometimes people are in a position where they will end up upsetting people, but it needs to have a conversation and not everybody being upset, because nothing good can come from everybody being upset. Nothing good can also come from narrow minds. So there needs to be a lot of discussion and not upset. Kathleen Blue, a professor of anthropology at Minnesota State University, said Wednesday that the skull was definitely from an ancestor of one of the tribes still living in the area. There are probably not as many people at the time wandering around Minnesota 8,000 years ago because, like I said, the glaciers have only retreated a few thousand years before that. That period we don't know much about. Yeah, and I'm sure that this will happen again and again, particularly as climate-related issues start exposing things that have gone hidden for thousands of years. So let's continue on. Let's continue on with the news. I can't focus on only one thing for too long. Otherwise, like I said, we won't get done with this in any real time. The next article is over in the Stock Marketeers channel. Weekend Sip review. Is this $370 Bartesian cocktail making machine worth the expense? America loves its cocktails, but apparently it doesn't love making them from scratch. Yeah, sometimes they're not that hard to make from scratch, and sometimes you want something that can be replicated again and again and again exactly how you want it, and nobody else can make it this way except a robot. So, hey, if I can buy a bot that makes my drinks perfectly the same way every single time, yeah, it's worth $370 if you are an avid drinker of said drink. The product promises to deliver high quality drinks without the fuss. This article's over at marketwatch.com by Charles Passy. Let's see here. So they always have referenced symbols, so Bud and KDP. How else to explain the mini cocktail mixers or ready to drink cocktails? That RTD, to me, that's a new acronym, RTD. It's been around for a while, but normally it was just ready to drink, but I see that acronym now, ready to RTD, all the time. People actually say the phrase RTD instead of ready to drink. It's just easy to say ready to drink. Just say it. Say it with me, ready to drink. And in recent years, there's been another way to have your drinks at home via a machine that will do the heavy lifting or mixing for you. That is a direct quote from the article. The Bartesian cocktail maker is $370. You have to go to bartesian.com, BARTESIAN.com, and you can get your own, apparently. Let's see here. Two such products came to market: DrinkWorks, a joint venture from Anheuser-Busch and Keurig Dr. Pepper, and Bartesian, a product launched in 2019 by entrepreneur Ryan Close. So DrinkWorks ended up not making it. There's a beer maker version of this that I want really bad, but for the last 80 plus days, I'm really close to making my deadline, although I have actually fallen off the wagon 5 times. I've had a little bit of candy 5 times in the last 90 days, mainly because it's been present, and I couldn't fight the urge anymore. I really wanted some sugar, And so I started treating, like an illicit drug, sugar. I'm No, I'm not interested in it. I don't want it. Stay away from me. Meh. And so have been making sugar be the bad guy, and sugar in all forms. So I wasn't drinking any alcohol. I wasn't having any sugar drinks. Um, so like unsweet iced tea is what I've been drinking, or milkshake mixes and other things that are like whey protein and stuff like that, and healthy stuff, right? Healthy stuff. I used to joke that health food upsets my stomach, but I want to see what it does to my blood work. So if everything works out fine, I'm going to be getting this device. That's not true. I actually ended up buying a tonal that is an exercise machine that bolts onto your wall and has sensors in its equipment so that it knows exactly how fast and how much weight, and it does a lot of stuff to enhance your workout in a shorter amount of time, make it more effective, and in a very small footprint for everything that you get. Now, wildly expensive, but it is potentially a life-changing piece of equipment that doesn't take up any space on your floor. In fact, you can put stuff right up next to it, and then when you're ready to work out, you move your stuff out of the way and you do your workout, which isn't really going to be, it's probably going to be the case for me, but at any rate. So this article over at MarketWatch, see how we get sidetracked by my train of thought. Let's see. So what they think about it, I'm of two minds about Bartesian, is what they say over at MarketWatch. First, the pros: it makes a decent drink, maybe not as good as the one you'll get in a craft cocktail bar, but certainly far better than some of the overly sweet and artificial RTDs in the market. And it's no doubt better than what you may get at a neighborhood bar that relies on, say, canned juices. I also like the customization aspect, both in terms of choosing the strength of the drink and then choosing the exact spirit of your choice. In other words, you can go high end or low end with your booze. See, if you're the one that selects the ingredient, then the quality is up to you. And if it's going to be the one that mixes it, then the ratios are up to you. So I don't know if the drink isn't as good as some craft cocktail bar unless they are using some ingredient that really sends it over the top. So they say there are some cons, chief among them, the thing takes up a lot of counter space. That's what happens when you have a bunch of alcohol and mixers and whatever else in the device. It's going to take up a lot of space. Yeah, you have to ask yourself if you really want to give up that space for something probably not as critical as a kitchen mixer or an air fryer, the hot appliance at the moment. In response, Close points out the obvious. The partition doesn't have to go on a kitchen counter and can be placed instead in a home bar area. But that's presuming you have that luxury. This author lives in a New York City apartment. A home bar is as much an anathema to them as a backyard hot tub. Well, and this goes to the previous article. There's cultural relativism here. If you have that particular perspective, then you need to make it abundantly clear that your con about taking up a lot of counter space is inherently, it's predicated on the idea that you are in a micro apartment in New York City with rent wildly expensive and real estate prices even higher. Big difference. So that should have been told at the front of that con. So at any rate, thanks for introducing us to the Bartesian. I'll be taking a look at the end of this. It doesn't look like you have too many options for the number of alcohols that you'll be installing in this thing. And right before my little endeavor to excise sugar from my diet, I got a bunch of alcohol, and I thought I was going to just kind of have a good old time, but I wanted to see just how much my blood work is being influenced by the candy and sugar and other things that I have been consuming without any issue. Um, and then, when you get older, you start talking to doctors maybe, and getting blood work done, and finding out what might be going on under the hood, so to speak. And there has been nothing yet. I saw this spike in my blood sugar, and said, let's make let's make a dramatic change and see if it has been me, or maybe something else is going on. Um, so it'll be interesting to see what this blood work does, because for all intents, the phrase "get healthy" has been thrown at me by a doctor, and but there doesn't seem to be anything that's like showing itself as being wrong. So it's really fascinating, and maybe this will be my reward on the other side of this. We'll see. Come on back and talk to me about this kind of stuff if you are interested in things like this, health and exercise and technology and business and society and science and all kinds of stuff. I tend to be rather holistic in my consumption of information, and would love to be able to talk to more people about it. In fact, on yesterday, I went and gave a presentation to a small group of small people, and talked about technology and society. And it's really rewarding to talk to people about this kind of stuff. And but I'm not out there running around announcing that I'm available, and maybe I should. Um, maybe that'll help this channel out. At any rate, let's get into the rest of these articles. I have a few more. Um, in the Mobile channel, patients deserve immediate access to FDA-approved innovations, not bureaucratic restrictions. This is an article over at The Hill. I'm just going to click the link because I'm falling way behind and I'm soapboxing a lot. This is an article by Phil Fan and Joe Grogan, not Joe Rogan, Joe Grogan, Grogan. And it's an opinion. So it says here, the views expressed by contributors are their own and not the view of The Hill. So they talk about innovation as a lifeblood that has made America the most economically successful nation in the modern era. That's a bit hyperbolic. I won't get into this. Biomedical innovation, however, is a costly and risky business. For example, only 5% of new cancer compounds make it into patients. Once breakthrough drugs or devices are approved as safe and effective for use by the FDA, especially those on public health programs, should have immediate access to them. Unfortunately, this is far from the case. Yeah, usually it's some MBA somewhere and an actuarial table saying this person isn't worth this amount of money, and a $250,000 shot isn't going to be injected in somebody that they deem as not risky or too much risk. And thus they lose the money because it's not going to get repaid, and it's so pricey that they're not going to get their money ahead of time because it needs to be insurance paid, and insurance isn't going to cover it because it's off brand or whatever. It's some custom whatever, and you have to have special compensants or recompense. I mean, and it has to be compensated somewhere from somebody else, and I don't know. It's wildly out of line with my ideology, and maybe yours too, that medicine is so expensive, and life-changing drugs and treatments aren't more readily available. But I know that money and fundamental research kind of go hand in hand. The problem really is that it gets priced like a product in business gets priced. It may cost me $25 to produce something, but if I see that the benefit to my customers makes it worth $3,500, then I, in a business, should be able to charge that because it's my work, my product, my marketing, my solution, and the benefit is an amazing amount of value. So, hey, I'm going to charge you $3,500. But my product or my business, my service doesn't result in somebody's demise if I charge too much and it can't be afforded by the public. No, it's normally, well, they're not going to be as efficient or they're not going to have as much fun. Not the person's going to get buried the next day. So I think that there are delays, there are costs, there are risk assessments and whatever else that go into medical services that I don't necessarily agree with, because they want to make sure, and I've had this conversation again before with other people in the medical field, right? So they're not going to pick a bunch of people that are going to get this treatment, because if the people are too high risk, then the product will be deemed a failure, and if it's deemed a failure, it won't be sold anywhere at all, at any time, at least not in a very lucrative form. Typically, in economies where there's a lot of value, a lot of wealth, I mean, there, and so that if you have a bunch of people die from your product because it was too early or whatever, or you didn't evaluate the people and they were higher risk than you didn't check, then your product basically will be wiped off the planet. So that's why they do what they do in the medical profession. They test, they test, they test, they target, they make sure that the person is the right amount of risk to reward. They're not going to give it to somebody that falls outside it. And a lot of this is built on the business mechanic. They're not going to chase after something that's only suitable for 5 people on the planet, that kind of thing. Unless it's a passion project for some billionaire. Well, anyway, I agree. Patients deserve immediate access to FDA-approved innovations, not bureaucratic restrictions. But it isn't bureaucratic. It's economic. It's profiteering. Somebody, I'm sure, will take exception to this, but don't think it is triggering you. Just understand that there are people out there that they don't think that this is bureaucracy. They think that it's financial, and a lot of it is. Ambulances used to not cost as much as they do now. And it's been broken off from the hospital and is a profiteering exercise, giving great benefit to those who need it at the time. But don't you think that you will pay any amount of money necessary to keep you alive if an AMT shows up? Well, that's kind of what happens. That's why the prices are so high. Somebody shows up, they give services, but because it's been broken off from the rest of the caregiving of a hospital, you get priced there, you get priced at the hospital, you get priced in the emergency department. $80 for somebody to crack open a box of gloves, and they use one glove, but for whatever reason, they're charging $80. And it's something that I read years ago. I better move on to the next article. This next article was something that I had heard about a couple of days ago, and then suddenly it showed up in my aggregator. I thought it was really interesting because of the previous article that I had just read. saw the headlines of. So this is in the Mobile Channel. She was told surgery would cost about $1,300. Then she got the bill and it was $229,000. And the Colorado Supreme Court ruled that Lisa French had never agreed to pay the full price when she signed a service agreement with the hospital. Huh. So here we have Lisa French. I was glad, not just for me, but for other people, Lisa French said about her court victory. I think most people don't get it, like I didn't get it, how insurance and hospitals work. So when Lisa Melody French, needed back surgery after a car accident, she went to a hospital near her home outside Denver. Her insurance information told her that she would be personally responsible for paying about $1,337. But after the surgery, the hospital claimed that it had misread her insurance card and that she was, in fact, an out-of-network patient, court papers said. As a result, Centura Health, which operated the hospital, billed her for $229,112.13. When she didn't pay, Centura sued her. She was scared about that, naturally, 60 years old, a clerk at a trucking company who eventually filed for bankruptcy, didn't understand because, a clerk at a trucking company who eventually filed for, okay, maybe she had to file for bankruptcy. I didn't understand because I was kind of relied on the hospital and my insurance company to work out what I needed to pay. This week, after a years-long battle, Colorado Supreme Court ruled that Ms. French did not have to pay nearly $230,000 for her spinal fusion surgery that she underwent at the hospital. It said that she would have to pay only $766.74, apparently reflecting the remainder of her balance as previously determined by a jury. And she was happy. Well, I hope she sues a countersuit. I'm just going to scroll down and see what else. There isn't much else there. Ms. French called the charge master a mystery and said she had no idea she was agreeing to its rates when she signed the hospital service agreements, and that she's just glad that it's all over. Yeah. I can't imagine that she's going to be given the same leeway in the future if they even allow her to go to that particular hospital. Let me see if I can find anything else to this. But the court found that Ms. French wasn't responsible for paying those rates because she didn't know the charge master even existed and hadn't agreed to its terms. Yeah. Well, good for her. I think that's wildly expensive. Just amazingly so. Okay, I've got about 4 more articles. I've been going kind of slow, and I need to hurry up through this. So I'm gonna kind of increase my clip here. Apple talks to suppliers to increase manufacturing efforts outside of China. With the ongoing concern there in China that the COVID virus is still running rampant and people are being locked in their homes, I can see why Apple is trying to increase manufacturing outside of China. I really think that a lot of stuff should be done by bots, but that will take jobs away, and that's never good, right? Malcolm Owen over at Apple Insider is the author of the article who's reporting it from various sources, I'm sure. Apple's intending to decrease its reliance on suppliers working in China, or report claims with the phone maker telling some contract manufacturers it wants to expand production outside of the country. Well, they'll probably find some place that's cheap, and some people will say, well, it's creating jobs for people, but they're not paying the same wages as here in the United States, because it would not make a very price conscious device. But it says the nature of the authoritarian government in China, including a rocky relationship with the United States, is also a potential problem for Apple. Future trade wars could cause Apple some problems in the ability to rely on the country for so much of its production. Yep. This will continue, but business is what business is. It tends to be rather exploitive and can be exploitive and uncaring. The next article is over in Hatch Ideas. Remote work is making homes more expensive. An uptick in remote work is driving home prices higher, says NBER study. It's because employees can now choose where they work, and it's fueling homebuyer migration. The research suggests Miami and Phoenix are the top destinations for migrating homebuyers. Well, this isn't really making homes more expensive. It's making regional. It's like saying that because there's a heat wave in one place, that it's going to be the end of the world. It's not everywhere. That's just bad weather. But there is global climate change that you have to worry about. But this isn't making everything more expensive. Just regions. But what's great about working from home is that you can go anywhere and find an inexpensive place to live. So why don't we allow more remote work? Use the tools that are available and allow us to have an increased quality of life by working from home and not having to spend a quarter of it driving. The next article is over in Business Insider by Alcina Lloyd, and it's remote work is making homes more expensive. It's because employees can now choose where they work. Yeah, I don't know. I think inflation is what's causing home prices to increase, and supply chain issues like wood not being able to be imported, uh, causing home prices to be wildly expensive. I've been saying wildly a lot today. I think the biggest benefit to us as homeowners would be 3D printed homes, because we no longer have to worry about the wood, and we can just dig the hole uh, for the basement and 3D print the walls from that spot, and we can do that. You just mix in the right mixins, kind of like making a bowl of ice cream, and it's been done. There are examples of it. Icon is one of the ones that has the ability. It's a company that does 3D printed homes. Has the ability to just kind of dig a hole and mix in some Portland cement, and suddenly you've got the ability to print the walls for a house. You can make it multiple stories, and it takes fewer people, and it's a shorter amount of time, and it's absolutely a benefit to everybody. But we have this old school mentality that the walls have to be made out of drywall and lumber, and so we're essentially strip mining the forests that are basically trying to save the planet from imploding, and that's kind of how it is. There's a profit motive here, but 3D printed houses, they run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, until your house is printed and there's somebody coming in and just putting down the things that are necessary when they need to, like kind of like supports across a window from one side of the wall to the other, so that the 3D printer can go keep on dropping that cement right across. We need to move away from the old school mentality of printed houses, and they're much more robust. Um, and because of the way that it's built, it uses inexpensive labor and sometimes um, undocumented workers, and those are the people. That's really interesting, because there's a whole dynamic here in society. Um, they want really inexpensive houses, and then they don't want to allow the workers that are willing to work for these suppressed wages and somewhat questionable work environments to do that job. So there's real disconnect between the reality of what's going on and the result of what's going on. Um, anyway, and that's kind of a side discussion, but in this particular case, this I don't think this has anything really to do with workers working from home, because if your business allows you to work from home, you can work from anywhere. Yeah, I've been doing this kind of thing, working from home for close to 25, 28 years, um, in one form or another. So, like, my first remote gig was working for an employer in California, and I was in DC. And it didn't, it would be like, oh, well, it became more expensive to live in DC because a bunch of people from California were working in DC. It's just kind of absurd. But there's a research paper that says that the U.S. house prices grew by 23.8%, the fastest on record, as remote work fueled both housing demand and home buyer migration, which ultimately led to an increase in home prices and rents. Why would people staying at home increase the price of anything? It's absurd. Anyway, Business Insider article. Again, it's written by Alcina Lloyd, and it's just reporting what somebody else has written. So, a study from the National Bureau of Economic Research analyzed remote work data from December 2019 to November 2021 and found that by the end of the period, 42.8% of American employees were still working from home, part or full time. Good. More people should. So, the next article is an Oklahoma state rep proposed legislation that would mandate young men get mandatory vasectomies. Ta-da! How about that? That makes sense. Oklahoma State Rep. Mickey Dolenz proposed mandatory vasectomies for boys once they hit puberty. Dolenz, speaking before a floor of legislators on Thursday, asked GOP lawmakers to consider his proposal. Dolenz made his remarks as the Oklahoma legislature debated a law that bans abortions from conception. From the sublime to the ridiculi, folks. Maybe this was being made as ironic, hey, I don't know. Okay, so Yelena Dejanova from businessinsider.com wrote this article. And let me see if I can scroll down. I would invite you to co-author a bill that I'm considering next year that would mandate that each male, when they reach puberty, get a mandatory vasectomy that's only reversible when they hit the point of financial and emotional stability. If you think that's crazy, then I think maybe you understand how 50% of Oklahomans feel as well, the Democrat said. Yeah. Okay. So the context is a little different than you might think. Dolan's remarks were made as the Oklahoma legislative debated HB 4327, a restrictive law that effectively bans abortion from the moment of fertilization. The legislature on Thursday passed the bill, and Governor Kevin Stitt is expected to sign it into law. If enforced, Oklahoma's law would be one of the strictest abortion restrictions in the country. If you want economic troubles, this is what you do. Yet these are the same people that are screaming out that nobody should take your rights, but then they are taking somebody's rights, and not my rights. They're not taking my rights. They're taking a woman's rights. But apparently that's okay. You're not allowed to control your body, women. It's all done by these people. And I can't say by government, because that's not what this is about. It's a select few people, not the government. These people are speaking from their position as if they are representative of everything that should be. And it's because I think irrational people are in control. And they want their rights imposed on you, and their rights are different than what currently exists. They want to control so that they are in charge of you. You are now cattle. So I hope that you stand up to this, because it's only The last 8 years have been leading up to this, and well, it's really been the last 60 years have been leading up to this. It was eventually going to get overturned, but it's all been stacked, and it's I'm so lost in this. Like so many other things I've said today, this is absurd as well. Nobody should be telling a woman what they can do with their body, and they aren't just a tool to create babies. They're human beings, and women should be so much more respected than overturning Roe v. Wade is going to allow them to be, because they will no longer be allowed to control their body by people who are saying that nobody should be allowed to take away their personal rights, yet they're taking away personal rights because of their ideological bent, not because of a legal bent, because of an ideological bent. I just got to keep going on. This is my last article for today. I'm going to call it short here. This is a jewel crafting channel article that was aggregated from jewelrymakingjournal.com. And it's a wire weaving project. I love this kind of stuff. I think that it's beautiful, and it always unique. No two pieces. You could sit there and try and make two pieces look the same, but you'll never make it look the same. This is an article that was put together by someone referred to as Mary. There's no last name. And it says that they've been wire wrapping for a year and until now avoided wire weaving. But in this case, I mean, these are really amazing. The amount of work that goes into these things, and the artistry that I see is really amazing. So I love these kind of things. Anyway, it's Mary from gymnosity.com. But the article is actually over at jewelrymakingjournal.com. So go check it out. And that's the end of today's show. The ohmTown Daily News show is every day. It goes into YouTube. It goes over to a podcast. You can get it in various places. That said, when you come over to ohmTown, if you stay for a little while and then go back to the front page, you will get new news. Of course, you can always go into each of the categories: create, news, education, entertainment, social, and technology. And within those are 50 channels. Each one of those I hope to bring to Twitch and to YouTube. If you are interested in being a host in one of these topics, or you have one that you're really passionate about and you want to host or co-host, get in touch with me. I am open to working with people to bring more channels within the environment of ohmTown over to Twitch and YouTube. And we can talk about specifics. Just reach out to me and let me know what your thoughts are. And I want to thank you for coming. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.